deal going to Cordova because I was looking at a property over there. I may never do business in Cordova again. So if I have a chance to make $1 million and you haven't followed the rules of the game are this is the law, contract law, and you don't know the rules, then I'm going to use it against you. It happens in basketball. It happens in football. Why would we change that in business? We believe in all the F words: faith, family, football, and fitness. Check us out on the Richard Neese Podcast every Saturday morning on WKUL. Please subscribe. Please help us out by growing the channel. We want to help good people get to a better place. Hey everybody, Richard Neese here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Richard Neese Podcast, not the Real Estate Rundown. I almost went there. You had me thinking back a few years ago, Dom.
No, absolutely. Yeah, oddly enough, my mind usually goes there. Did not this time.
Yeah, swapped up there. Yeah. So the Richard Neese Podcast is here to help good people get to a better place. We want to add value to your life. If we do add value, please like, please share, please put our message out to more people. We do this on a weekly basis in order to have you share in our experiences, sharing our failures, sharing our successes, and so that you
sharing our conspiracies.
Conspiracies. We may be in some conspiracies today too, yeah. But we want to make sure that you guys are getting some value from our program. We don't have any ads. We're not sponsored by anybody. We're constantly just trying to help good people get to a better place. Dom, where can everybody find us?
Find us on YouTube at the Richard Neese Podcast, Facebook at the Richard Neese Podcast, the Facebook page, Instagram at the Richard Neese Podcast, Rumble at the Richard Neese Podcast, and TikTok at the Richard Neese Podcast.
All those places. So Dominic and I were talking about AI for a minute, but I want to move into something that happened. If you guys have watched some of the episodes from before, you've heard me talking about wholesalers. We had a wholesaling incident, as you might say, on Monday in our company. So we ended up buying a house locally, bought it cash, that had a wholesale contract on it up until a certain date. We are actually fixing up this house on Monday morning, and then we have some cars pull up, and it's a home inspector. It's the home inspector and the buyer's parents. And so my crew calls me out. I go and ask what's going on. And apparently this wholesaler, because he thought, you don't need to extend a contract because it was close enough, decided that he was going to put this house under contract without an extension, and that he was going to try and sell it without the seller even knowing it was out of contract. The thing is, we bought it the day after it went out of contract. So it really raised a bunch of issues. Dom, have you ever experienced anything like that?
No experience whatsoever. But my first inclination would be to go to, when it comes down to a real estate contracts, but I do have a little bit of experience with.
Sure.
Is that once the clock hits 12:01.
That's right.
That contract is expired, and
it's expired or voidable. It's not necessarily void, but it can be voidable at that point.
Yeah, and again, without having any kind of verbiage that implies that it can be extended, it's done, dead and done at that point. The only way that it could be is at that point you couldn't even extend that contract out legally. People do it, but it's technically not legal. It's not illegal,
right?
But realistically, if you want to follow true form or true procedure, you'd have to start a brand new contract over, because that contract is no longer valid. That you'd have to start a brand new one over. And again, it's handshakes don't do well.
That's right.
That doesn't work.
Not to say about
no, it doesn't work.
So what you look at on this, for you guys who aren't familiar with wholesalers and contracts and things like that, basically these guys lock in a contract with a seller. And then they go out and try and sell their house for more money than the contract is. It's a legal practice. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. But the issue that you run into is that there's no transparency. So this wholesaler was trying to bully or big boy me and my team by saying, "Oh, you guys can't do this. We're still in contract." But amazingly, they couldn't find the extensions on this. Well, the seller, the owner of the property, had already talked to an attorney. They had already discussed that they would let the contract expire, and then if we were still interested, that we would buy it after that. So it was just amazing to see how many people got hurt in this transaction. Unfortunately,
a lot of and not calling them stupid, ignorant, innocent people.
Sure. So innocent people for sure, because the expectation is that if it's listed on the MLS, then it should be for sale. It should be available. It wasn't under contract. It was just listed. And then when it expires, that means it's no longer able to be sold. And that's where you really have problems with wholesalers, because rarely are they actually real estate agents. typically they buy a contract and they buy into like a flat fee or something like that, cafeteria, real estate agent, listing service. And so they just put it on the MLS. There's no actual representation. And so in this case, it was a local real estate agent that had a buyer in the buyer's family who were excited about closing this thing. They were going to close it cash in a week. Crazy, right? And they were ready to go. And then they were really upset to see that we had a deed and we had bought it the Friday before. They were telling us, oh, we've got the power turned on, the water turned on. You don't have the deed. You didn't get that done. So it was a really hard process because I hated breaking those folks' hearts. We'd already had 2 or 3 days worth of work done on this thing over the weekend because we were ready to start moving on it. So it hurt me. It was with a company that I used to work for. And so obviously there could have been some bad blood or bad relationships there. So just be careful. If somebody is not a real estate agent, real estate professional, then at least talk to an attorney and find out what's going on and make them give you your paperwork. Because that was a big thing. This guy didn't have his paperwork. It was all digital, all online, and he couldn't find it. And then the extensions, which I think were auto-extended, they just signed in person instead of actually having the other person sign it. I think that's how they extended the contract. And then in the end, they didn't have the extension that pushed over to where they could continue to list it and sell it like they tried to do.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's one of the things you learn in real estate class is that you cannot have a contract in perpetuity.
That's right. Auto extend. And actually, when I started in real estate, I don't know if you remember this, Tom, one of my strategies was to go after expired listing.
Yeah.
And so I kept thinking, that house had been listed for 12 months, 15 months. That's weird. Well, one of the things that our local agency or local association required was a listing agreement. And I started realizing that people were not getting additional listing agreements and they were just auto-renewing, which is not legal in Alabama.
Yeah, they would just extend it online.
That's right.
It on the MLS.
So instead of having that hard conversation of, hey, we haven't sold it yet, you want to extend your listing, they were just pressing a button because most folks don't track that on the backside. And the market wasn't as hot back then when I first started, so it was really common to go over a 6-month listing. Some folks had put 12 and 18-month listings on stuff, which is insane to me. Towards the end of my career, as far as a real estate agent goes, selling to the public, I always did 90-day listings. If I can't sell it in 90 days, then either the price is wrong, I'm not the right person, or the actual condition of the property is not right.
That conversation needs to be had. And I adopted that policy too, where I told people all the time, it's like, I'm only going to do 3 months, and that at the end of 3 months, a conversation needs to be had. One of us needs to be held accountable for this. And honestly, one of the things for me was, and again, you invested a lot too, was that I would invest so heavily in some marketing and stuff that if they're not willing to come down on the price, I'm okay with letting that listing go. If they were not, because that listing's cost me money. Yeah, it's a marketing machine. It was a marketing machine for me, but at the same time, there's a point where I have to stop marketing it, and you have to be realistic, and I have to get a return on my investment. I know most people would look at an agent and say, how dare you say a return on your investment? But I actually was putting in way more money, effort, energy into these properties than the average agent. I would think there's only a handful, North Alabama, you being one of them, that would put as much into it.
And we built out a marketing plan around those 90 days, just like you did.
Yeah.
We had, in week 1, we do this. In week 3, we do this. We change this up. We put additional funds in this way. We do an open house on this week. Week 3, 5, and 7.
Oh, yeah. And I was working with you there. We wouldn't do just, we're going to have a day of photography where you're going to go out there and get the photographer out there. No, it was a day of marketing.
That's right.
Of getting as much material as we could when it came down to videos, photography, that we would go to a house and we would shoot for 8 scenarios of different events that we would have planned for the future. And it would be
A, B, C, D test.
Yeah. Neutral dating one. We wouldn't go and give we would not mention dates. We should not mention days of the week. If there was an open house, it's come out and see me all of this open house. The only thing we would mention would be the hourly times. But
absolutely,
we would go and have enough content in there so that we could market it across that 90 days without having to constantly inconvenience the seller.
That's right.
And it's official on us too, because we can go out there and spend 4 to 6 hours out there, get everything done, knocked out. We're out of there, and then we can just move on and market it. And then you would just call me up and say, hey, let's plug this one in. Right, you do that. We just plug it in, plug in the next one.
Well, and so those listing agreements are important. And what's important on this is with a professional, they're going to have those conversations with you, and they're going to make sure you understand this is our timeline. And any contract has to have some sort of price, people involved. They have to have an address, and you're going to have a contract date that it starts, contract date that it ends. And then this is one thing that so many people forget about because it doesn't get taken advantage of. People don't get hurt on this, but consideration. Too many people miss out on consideration. What is a consideration, Dominic?
Consideration is, I think of it like earnest money.
That's exactly right. So some sort of earnest money, even if it's $1 in Alabama, that's what locks in a contract. It is very, very hard in real estate to defend somebody backing out or taking another offer if there is zero consideration, because there is nothing put up. And that doesn't mean this is the 1980s consideration where you hand the seller $2,000 or 10%, but it has to be something. If you deal with wholesalers, they are really, really efficient at this. Let's say that. So good wholesalers know that if they're competing with another wholesaler and they lose the contract, somebody else gets it, and they don't put the money down, then they can come in right behind them and take up another offer and put the money down, and the contract is no longer valid because it was never an official contract without earnest money. So many people here locally don't do that. They don't know. It's USDA land is what I call it. You're in an area where most people don't want to put any money down because they don't have any money for the down payment. They don't have any money for the other stuff.
It's inconvenient.
That's right.
What happens? The brokers don't want to have an escrow account.
That's right.
There's many. No. I never thought of it that way before. And I know that it's a real thing, but I never. Yeah, you taught me something.
So with consideration, I mean, locally, if you're a real estate agent, you're not going to come in and cut a guy's throat on it because you're going to have to work with him on another listing. But if you're talking about multi-million-dollar listings or multi-million-dollar contracts, you might start thinking about that. I mean, guys, I'm only going to be, let's say I've got a deal going in Cordova because I was looking at a property over there. I may never do business in Cordova again. So if I have a chance to make $1 million and you haven't followed the rules of the game are this is the law, contract law, and you don't know the rules, then I'm going to use it against you. It happens in basketball. It happens in football. Why would we change that in business? It's no different standard. If you don't know that a three-pointer is worth this and a two-pointer is worth that, and that's the line, then you shouldn't get a three-pointer. If you're staying on the line and then shooting a two, it's not a three. And we have to look at it like that. Shot clocks. I mean, all sorts of little things are important. How about a timeout rule? How important is the timeout rule, right? You get a technical if you use your timeouts, or if you use one of your timeouts. There are lots of things that people get caught up in. It's the same thing in business. And if you're dealing with a true professional, they'll know that. And if you're not, like in this case, there was no earnest money put down either. But we waited for the contract to expire regardless because we want to try and keep a good reputation. And if the seller, the owner was comfortable with that, we were going to let them go with it. But if he wasn't, we were going to work with him after the contract had expired in order to get the house. So I thought that was an interesting experience because we haven't had one that has been that blatant before. We've had some dust ups with wholesalers before where they didn't want to give our earnest money back or something like that, even though, and this happened to get recently in December when they didn't meet their timeline on selling because the title wasn't clear, and we ended up not closing, and we still have earnest money tied up on that deal because the closing attorney won't release it. So that's the risk you run on the other side. Even though the house is sold, unless we get a mutual release, they don't want to do that. So in order for me to get that money back, $500, I would have to go to court. It's going to cost me more than $500 in legal fees. So why would I do that?
Yeah, it's going to go to the state one day.
No, it will eventually when they balance their account and go through all that. And I think your broker or both of our previous brokers, Wes has one that's still over at Doyle Real Estate that's been sitting there for like 12 years or something like that. So it's crazy to think about that stuff. But if you don't have consideration, then you don't have a contract. Please remember that. If you don't have a start and a finish date, you don't have a contract because you can't just say, "Oh,
well." Would it still be a contract? I'm genuinely questioning right here, not questioning. Would it still be a contract, but a non-enforceable contract?
I mean, wouldn't that be the whole point of a contract period? So you have a piece of paper that everybody's agreed on, but a contract is enforceable. And an agreement? I mean, I
guess it would be a non-enforceable agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to get legal advice on
that. Yeah, I'm thinking out loud on the fly.
So truly, the only thing that gets forced in the end on that is when you sign the deed and you sign all the documents at the end. That's the enforceable thing because there's actually money changing hands, which is the purchase of the property. So it's just interesting the little things that can get you caught up on stuff like that. And it's different in Alabama than it is in Tennessee, in Mississippi, in different places. Contract law happens.
And it does make sense whenever you look at attorneys and stuff that for them to have a retainer, they have to have an exchange of monetary value.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I know that there were cases where people would exchange a tractor or a cow for back in the day for that, but but an exchange of some kind of monetary value.
It's consideration, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of times you have consideration in Alabama before 2016 or 2018. You could put $10 in other consideration on the deed.
Yeah.
Now you can't do that. You have to list the price you're supposed to.
There are specific sellers or property owners that I've seen, large property owners that you look at every single one of their deeds.
$10 another consideration.
And every single one of them is $10 another consideration on there.
But truly, that's accurate, right? It is $10 another consideration.
One of the best ones is whenever you see them that actually, and I bought a house like this once where the seller, and it was for sale by owner, he was telling me, oh man, I don't, we agreed on the price and everything. He's like, man, I'm not going to make any money. You're trying to give me a guilt trip. We're under contract already. Trying to guilt trip me during it all. And little did he know that I already looked at the deed and I saw what he paid for the property. Not even a year before. It was on there the exact amount that he paid for it. And
it definitely makes it hard.
And he started trying to go and try and guilt trip me about something. I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, man, you do know that I know that's I can figure this stuff out. Worst case scenario, I can look it up.
Well, there's other ways to look at it too.
Yeah.
Before that, you could actually look and see how much the deed taxes were or the fees were, and they charged a certain dollar amount per thousand. And so you could figure out what was actually paid on them. There's some ways to reverse engineer it, and you can usually figure it out pretty easily. And I mean, it's just like car sales, right? So when you're trading for a car or buying a car private, then everybody wants to put $500, right? Or $1,000, or whatever the case might be, to decrease the taxes. Didn't they pass a law recently, past 10 years or so, where it's like the lowest blue book value or something like that, or is it still the actual said amount that was paid?
I honestly have no idea on that. I know what you're talking about. I just don't know if they pass out. No, I don't know.
I'll have to check into that and see. I'm pretty sure that they go off of some sort of basis now. But if there's anybody at the DMV that knows that, we'd be happy. Please comment, give us a link, let us see some information on that side. I think it's important to do that. So, Dom, I keep running across this same thing, and you've seen it over and over again. And we're not going to talk about anybody specific, but I really struggle with dealing with home builders, right? So home builders that I continue to see good ones. I continue to see bad ones. You see the tract home builders. You see the guys that are doing one house a year. But we both have some experience in that world. What do you think as a home builder is one of the most crucial skills that run your business?
Bookkeeping.
And why do you think that is? And what do you see as being a common issue with home builders? We've worked with several of them.
Really, because bookkeeping, you need accountability on all aspects of everything, that where your money is going. It's got to be like any business and stuff. And there's so many times where you have the handshake deals, you have the cash deals, when you're getting a large portion of these draws from a loan and stuff, that you don't actually have to account every dime to the lender of where everything went.
That's right.
And so, especially if you're doing multiple projects, there's commingling of loans. And if you can go and take one house and it could show a great profit, but it borrowed from another loan for it to have that profit, eventually, if you're building 8 houses, what you're going to have is 7 profitable houses and 3 properties that lose hundreds of thousands of dollars because it keeps floating the note. It keeps floating on to the next one. So it comes down to where, in my opinion, is that proper bookkeeping means that the house is responsible for its own debt.
Sure. Specifically
for its own debt, and not trying to do a package loans so they could take on other debts with it.
Absolutely.
And that would be the big. There's many other issues too, but to me that's the one that I see.
So that is great. Yeah. So Craig and I, my business partner, and we're talking about this the other day. We're driving by and we're looking. We saw 4 or 5 houses that were lined up from one builder, and this builder had decided for a while he was going to go out of business, and then got back in business, and then went out of business again, and kind of gone up and down and up and down and up and down. And so we were just kind of discussing that. Like, why does that happen? I think it's exactly what you just said. So the reason I want to talk about this is because if you are working with a custom home builder that's also doing other builds, you need to be very diligent. This isn't anybody in particular. This is just PSA, as you would say. If you're working with a custom home builder, out there, make sure that you're checking receipts. Make sure that you're checking where the funds for the projects are going. We've seen multiple times where, just like what Dominic said, it goes from one house to the next house to the next house, and then they don't even know what they have in the house. I think that we do a pretty good job on our bookkeeping. We have weekly meetings. We check on that stuff. We got projects. Craig, my business partner, is he's not a CPA. He's got an accounting degree. We dig into that all the time and try to allocate all of the expenses to each property. And it's very, very difficult. And we're running about 4 or 5 projects at a time. I've seen home builders, small home builders, run 8 or 10. So you start looking at it, and then you look at, it's not all cookie cutter either. Because Dominic, you may get 3 lots for a great deal, and the next one may be redeveloping land, and then you're dividing out, you've got all the expenses from the engineers, and you got expenses from surveyors, you've got expenses from the city for utilities and all this stuff, but I don't have any money in this account because the bank won't do what? They won't let me draw yet because I'm not at a certain point. Well, I'll just use this other account right now to get me through that point. Once that one catches up, then I'll pay it back on this one. That rarely happens, and a lot of times what happens with that, if you're getting your house built by this person, your funds are going to another project. I've had it happen 3 or 4 times. Personally, when I had somebody build a house for us for sale, and I just worry about that on a regular basis. What are your thoughts, Tom?
I've seen it too many times. I mean, and again, same thing. It's it's so common that it happens too. It's not uncommon. In fact, I know a lot of contractors.
Sure.
But I know far less that keeps accounting up to date than that. I see it so much. It's very, very prevalent. And here, so again, and I'm talking about my own family members, my own dad, my own brothers, myself. Sure. Whenever we were doing multiple projects too. So it's not necessarily I'm saying like, oh gosh, I'd never do this. I would never do that. No, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a hypocrite here, but that's what I see was the major problem that we've had. But I still see it being prevalent within contractors. Sure. A common practice, very common practice.
Well, and you have that, and here's the thing that really I see.
It's usually an open loan too. That's the biggest thing.
Exactly
it's usually an open loan.
So I see this all too often where a builder who is managing projects also, of course, needs to get paid throughout the process, right? Mm-hmm. So you got a 6-month build on a house, which is pretty common. Some guys can do it faster, some guys slower. 6-month build, he still needs to make money. So what he's doing to pay for his grocery bill is he's got 5 projects going. So each project he was taking $500 a month, $1,000 a month out of to make sure he's good. Well, in the end, he's like, where'd all my profit go? And that's the real struggle, is because he wants to be the investor because I'm risking my capital and all this stuff. He also wants to be the actual employee inside the business and get paid off of that. And so that's where I see builders really struggle. And then you have an entitlement. So I'm doing all these things, which guys that build good homes, they should be lauded. I mean, it's work that has to be done.
You have to know a lot about
absolutely
a lot about a lot of different industries.
So there's risk, there's stress, there's equipment, there's managing employees, managing subs. You get all these things. So the first thing that comes to mind is, I deserve, I should be. Well, the thing that they're missing is that they should be making more money, but they spread it out all across these projects and paid themselves along the way. There's rarely that much profit. I had a builder tell me one time that as a real estate agent, he said, you made a lot more money than I did, and I built the damn house. That's what he said. I mean, I pointed out, and you'll know this person, I pointed out the fact that you were taking draws the whole time to feed your family, to go to Disneyland, to do all these things. I can't help the fact that you did that. All I did was work on this piece for an agreed upon amount. You said you would pay me that, and we were good on that side. So it hurts me to see that.
It's very common in real estate, and a lot of agents who work with builders heard that phrase before.
Sure.
It's like, oh, you got a bigger check than I do. And again, when you get to the closing table, do you see that your check is bigger, But again, also you got to take consideration there's splits and stuff. So realistically,
that's right.
It's not a true statement, but at the core, I mean, it could be. But the main point about it all is that you took an advance on your paycheck.
That's right.
You took an advance on your paycheck that you financed in through the house to pay yourself from those profits.
And sometimes an advance for the next house, not just for you.
Right.
Now, you may have $10,000 in that house you're selling right now that's already been spent on the next house, but you're saying, oh, I only made this amount of profit. So, and
then eventually you kick the can down the road so far to whenever you got to go and balance the books, that it just looks like that you were very you weren't profitable at all. When in fact, you've already ate your profits.
Yeah, you bought a brand new 3,500 truck. You've been driving that thing around. You've been burning gas. You haul the kids everywhere. Somehow you made enough money to buy a camper, even though you weren't making any money. It continues to build on that.
See, at first I thought I knew who you were talking about, but the camper threw me out.
Well, that's just in general. So this stuff starts adding up, and you start buying these toys. You've got equipment that you don't really use, but I might use it one day for a project, so it'll make up for it. Well, the insurance carries on that thing. The insurance on the trucks carry. The insurance on the equipment carries, but you're not thinking about that in the overhead. So there's lots of things that builders, and picking on builders, general contractors, subcontractors, anybody that runs a construction business and really a business as a whole, you need to have a better baseline on that side in order to run a more efficient business. Because what it does is it squeezes you. I've seen several people that I had a lot of respect for and still do. I know get pinched in certain situations because they were waiting on that next land deal that they invested in to cash out, even though they needed the cash in order to pay for their own bills or pay for the next house that they were doing. So I've seen that stuff happen over and over again. I had one of my friends, Bruce Vick, ask me this question last week. He said, how do you make it as a builder? This is the stuff that I told him. You've got to make sure your books are right. You've got to understand that you're going to get paid on the front end or the back end. You're not going to get paid on both. Adam Davidson does not get paid on the front end. He gets paid on the back end. He gets paid on the back end thousands of times. He accepted that risk. He said, I'm not building houses anymore. I'm going to run a company that builds houses. And as the CEO, I'm going to make, I don't know exactly what his title is, but if you don't know Adam Davidson, you're not local. Davidson Homes is a big company here in the Southeast now. They're a large company based out of Hartselle. But Adam decided he was going to make a small piece on every single house he builds, and he got into the running the business. He got into the development side. I'm going to make sure land lots are in front of me, and I guarantee he makes a piece off of the build, a piece off of the land, a piece off of every single one of those, but none of them are bigger than the real estate agent's check. I promise you he doesn't make more than the real estate agent per house, but he sells so many houses it doesn't matter. And that's the part that a lot of contractors don't realize is you have to know the business side, you have to know the construction side. A good book to listen to is the E-Myth, the Entrepreneur's Myth, because it talks about these different puzzle pieces and what you fit best in. And it'll really give you an assessment overall if you should start your own business or if you should work for somebody else and you have the tolerance for that. Now, I've run. We didn't get to talk about any AI. I'm sorry, man. We're
Save for next week.
I think we should definitely we should draft up one for next week and maybe even get one to next week and do something like that. How can everybody reach us? How can they find us? What can they do to support our channel?
Like the video, subscribe to all the channels, share it anywhere that you want to share it. Any little nuggets that we get from our shorts or TikToks or reels, feel free to pass it off if you get any value out of that. We're working to go on to more, try to get out there more and more every day. We're building and we're growing and leveling up at the same time.
Let's see how many people listen to us the whole way through or just the end. Maybe they'll start just listening to the end. I want to get a $25 gift card to the first person that comments and a $10 gift card to the second person that comments. Give us meaningful feedback. Give us something to talk about. Give us critiques. That's what we want to hear from the butcher shop. You post on YouTube, we'll get you a gift card.
All right. Sounds good. You have a great day.
All right.